Good morning. Thank you for coming in today. I have your resume here, and it looks like you have about 3 years of experience in front desk and administrative roles. We are looking for someone who can not only handle the day-to-day traffic, but also take a high level of ownership over the office operations. How are you doing today?
I am doing great, thank you for having me. I have been looking forward to this conversation. I really enjoy the fast-paced nature of front desk work, and I feel like my last few years have really prepared me to step into a role with more responsibility.
Glad to hear that. Let's dive right in. To start with the basics, we deal with a lot of multitasking here. Imagine you are in the middle of assisting a visitor at the desk, and the phone starts ringing. It is a common scenario, but how do you handle that to make sure neither party feels neglected?
That is definitely a daily occurrence in any busy office. My primary goal is to make sure the person standing in front of me feels valued, since they are physically present. The proper procedure, as I have practiced it, is to first acknowledge the visitor with a polite gesture or a brief statement. I would say something like, "Just one moment please, I will be right with you." This lets them know I haven't forgotten them.
And then the phone.
Then I answer the phone promptly and professionally. I try to keep that initial phone call as brief as possible. If it is a quick question, I answer it and get off the line. However, if the caller has a more complex issue that requires more time, I will politely ask the caller if I can take their information and call them back in a few minutes. Once the call is ended, I immediately return my full attention to the visitor and continue assisting them. It is all about managing expectations in the moment.
That makes sense. Now, shifting to digital communication. With a high volume of emails, it is easy for things to slip through the cracks. In your experience, how quickly should a professional respond to an email, and how do you manage that flow?
Generally, I believe you should respond to an email as quickly as possible, with a gold standard of within 24 hours. However, if an email is marked urgent or is clearly time-sensitive, I aim to reply within a few hours. One thing I have learned over the last 3 years is that you don't always need the final answer to send a response. Even if I do not have a full answer yet, I will acknowledge receipt of the email and let the sender know that I am working on it, and when they can expect a detailed response. Prompt replies show professionalism and respect for the sender's time, and it prevents the other person from wondering if their message was even received.
I'd agree. Acknowledging receipt is a small step that makes a big difference. Let's turn up the heat a bit. Suppose a VIP client arrives. They are visibly upset, perhaps they've had a bad experience with a product or service, and they are demanding to speak to the CEO immediately. You know the CEO is in a closed-door meeting or perhaps not even in the building. How do you manage that situation?
That is a high-pressure situation, but the key is to remain calm and maintain professional composure. My first step is to acknowledge their concerns without making promises I cannot keep. I would not tell them the CEO will be out in 5 minutes if I know that is not true. Instead, I would listen actively to understand the core of the issue. I want them to feel heard. I would use a respectful and empathetic tone to de-escalate the situation, saying something like, "I can see how frustrating this is, and I want to make sure we get this resolved for you."
How do you handle the demand for the CEO specifically?
I would explain that I will escalate the matter immediately, while remaining discreet about the CEO's specific availability. I would not say the CEO is at lunch or at a doctor's appointment. I would simply say they are currently unavailable. Then I would offer a viable alternative. I would suggest involving a senior manager or another authorized representative who has the power to address the issue promptly. The goal is to resolve the issue efficiently while protecting the company's professionalism and the client's dignity. If I can move them from the lobby to a private office or a seating area, that also helps remove the spectacle and calms the environment.
I like the idea of moving them to a private area. It protects the image of the office. Now, speaking of privacy, you've likely handled a lot of sensitive data. In your own words, what is the purpose of maintaining professional confidentiality, and why is it so critical in an administrative role?
Confidentiality is essentially the bedrock of trust in an office. In an administrative role, you are often the gatekeeper. You see the calendars, you handle the payroll documents, you see who is visiting, and you might see private emails. The purpose of maintaining this confidentiality is to protect sensitive information about clients, employees, and the organization itself. It ensures privacy and prevents unauthorized access to personal or business details.
What happens when that trust is broken?
If confidentiality is broken, the consequences can be severe. It can lead to legal issues, especially with things like HIPAA or GDPR depending on the industry. It can damage the company's reputation or destroy a relationship with a key client. Beyond the legal side, it creates a culture of distrust among employees. Following these rules shows that I am a professional who can be trusted with the inner workings of the company, which helps maintain a secure and stable work environment.
Let's talk about a practical security scenario. A visitor arrives and claims they have a 10 o'clock appointment. However, they aren't on the list or they cannot provide a confirmation email or invite. How do you verify their identity and status without being rude?
I would start by remaining polite and professional. I wouldn't immediately tell them they aren't on the list, as that can feel confrontational. Instead, I would gather basic details. I'd ask for their full name, the purpose of the visit, and specifically who they are meeting with or which department they are visiting. Once I have those details, I would cross-check the information with our internal scheduling system. If it's not there, I would contact the relevant staff member directly to see if a meeting was arranged informally.
And if the staff member doesn't know about it?
If no appointment is found after checking the system and the staff, I would explain the situation clearly and kindly. I might say I apologize, but I am not seeing an appointment listed for today. I would then offer alternatives, such as helping them reschedule or directing them to the appropriate contact person via email or phone to clear things up. If they are a regular client, I might ask for a government-issued ID, just to verify their identity matches our records, before I spend more time digging into the schedule.
Good. Let's shift gears to technical skills. We rely heavily on the Microsoft Office suite. How proficient are you with Word, Excel, and PowerPoint? Give me some specific examples of how you've used them.
I consider myself highly proficient in the entire suite. In Word, I go beyond just typing letters. I create and format complex documents, using styles and templates to ensure company branding is consistent across all outgoing correspondence. In Excel, I can build spreadsheets that do more than just list data. I use formulas, VLOOKUPs, and pivot tables for data analysis and tracking. For example, in my previous role, I managed a monthly expense tracker that automatically flagged budget overages.
And PowerPoint?
I use PowerPoint to design professional presentations. I don't just put bullet points on a slide. I use animations, transitions, and embedded media to make the information engaging. I've used it to create quarterly review decks for executives, ensuring the visual layout was clean and the data was easy to digest. I focus on accuracy and efficiency, making sure the documents aren't just functional but look polished.
That sounds like a strong level of competence. Now imagine you are handling the scheduling for several managers. When a caller asks to book an appointment, what is the very first piece of information you need from them and why?
The first piece of information I need is their name. It seems simple, but it's the most critical starting point. Knowing the name allows me to address them properly throughout the conversation, which builds rapport. More importantly, from a system standpoint, it allows me to immediately search for their record. If they are an existing client or patient, I can pull up their history and see if they have any preferences or previous notes. If they are new, it's the first entry in a new file. Starting with the name sets the stage for an organized entry into the system.
Speaking of scheduling, conflicts are inevitable. Let's say you have two high-ranking executives who both need the same conference room at the exact same time. They both feel their meeting is the priority. How do you resolve that conflict?
In that situation, the most important thing is to remain neutral and professional. I avoid taking sides or agreeing that one meeting is more important than the other. First, I would do a quick scan of the available space to see if either meeting can be moved to another room, or if the timing can be shifted by just 30 minutes.
What if there are no other rooms and the timing is fixed?
If there is absolutely no flexibility in the room or the time, I would politely ask both executives or their assistants if one meeting could be held in a different format, such as a virtual call, via Zoom or Teams. If neither is flexible and the deadlock continues, I would escalate the situation to a higher authority, such as their shared superior or the office manager, to make the final decision. The key is to handle it diplomatically. I would present the facts. We have one room and 2 critical meetings, and I am looking for the best solution for the company. This keeps me from being the one who says no to an executive.
That's a diplomatic approach. Now let's walk through the logistics of a larger event. Walk me through your full process for setting up a meeting room reservation for a large group.
For a large group, the details are where things can go wrong, so I use a very structured process. First, I confirm all the core details: date, time, duration, and the exact number of attendees. I also ask about specific requirements, like whether they need a U-shape seating arrangement or a classroom style. Next, I check the availability of a room that fits the group size and has the necessary AV equipment. Once the room is selected, I reserve it in the system and send a formal confirmation to the organizer.
What about the tech and the environment?
That's the next phase. I coordinate with the IT or facilities team to ensure the equipment is actually working. I don't just assume the projector works, I want it tested. I'll arrange for microphones, adapters, or specific cabling if needed. I also handle the catering if that's part of the request, ensuring delivery times are set for 15 minutes before the meeting starts. Finally, I follow up with the organizer a day before the meeting to confirm all details and let them know that the room is prepped and ready. It's about anticipating the needs of the organizer so they can focus on their meeting rather than the logistics.
You've mentioned a lot of process. Let's go back to the concept of confidentiality. You mentioned it earlier, but I want to dig deeper. What does confidentiality mean specifically in an administrative context, and how do you apply it to your daily habits?
In an administrative context, confidentiality means keeping sensitive information private and secure, ensuring it is only shared with people who are authorized to know it. This isn't just about big company secrets, it's the small things too. It's personal phone numbers, home addresses of employees, or a manager's private health information. To apply this daily, I make sure my computer screen is locked whenever I leave my desk. I never leave sensitive documents lying on the printer or the front desk where a visitor might see them. I also be very careful with how I communicate over the phone. If someone calls asking for a manager's personal cell phone number, I don't give it out, regardless of who is asking, unless I have explicit permission.
What if a colleague, someone you trust, asks you for a little bit of inside information about a pending promotion or a salary change?
That is a test of professional integrity. I would politely but firmly decline to share that information. I would explain that as the administrator, I have access to a lot of data, but it is my professional responsibility to keep that information secure for everyone's sake. I believe that if I am willing to leak information about one person, others will worry I will leak information about them. Maintaining that boundary is the only way to keep the trust of the entire office.
Let's talk about technical tools again. Beyond Microsoft Office, what other software skills do you think are necessary for a modern front desk role?
While Office is the core, I think versatility is key. You should be comfortable with Google Workspace, as many companies use a mix of both. Basic database management skills are also important for tracking clients or inventory. I think being able to navigate the internet efficiently for research or communication is a given, but I also believe in being a fast and accurate typist. In my experience, using a CRM like Salesforce or a similar tool is a huge advantage for tracking interactions with clients. If I don't know a specific software, My approach is to find the tutorials and learn it quickly on my own, which is something I've done several times in my career.
Speaking of phones, it's a big part of the job. For the sake of clarity, can you explain the difference between an inbound and an outbound call from an administrative perspective?
Yes, an inbound call is when someone from the outside calls the business. This is usually a customer seeking help, a vendor checking on a payment, or a new client inquiring about services. These calls require a high level of hospitality and quick problem solving. An outbound call is when I initiate the contact. This could be following up with a client who left a message, confirming an appointment, or coordinating with a vendor. The key difference is who starts the conversation, and that changes the tone. Inbound calls are about reacting and assisting. Outbound calls are about proactive management and follow-through.
That is a clear distinction. Now let's imagine a scenario where you are stuck. A visitor asks a question that you simply do not have the answer to, and your supervisor is unavailable. How do you handle that without appearing incompetent or frustrating the visitor?
The worst thing you can do is guess or give wrong information. The best approach is to be honest, polite, and proactive. I would say something like, "That is a great question, and I want to make sure I give you the most accurate information. I am not entirely sure of the answer at this moment, but let me find out for you." I would then ask for a few clarifying details if necessary, and then I'd either look up the information in our company handbook, check the internal wiki, or reach out to another team member who might. No, I'd keep the visitor updated, perhaps by offering them some water or a place to sit while I investigate. I always make sure to follow through and give them the correct answer before they leave the building.
I appreciate that honesty. Now let's talk about document management. Some people use the terms filing and archiving interchangeably, but they are different. Can you explain the difference between archiving and filing documents?
Yes, they serve very different purposes. Filing is about the active system. These are documents you need for your daily work and must be easily accessible. For example, current client contracts, active project files, or the current month's invoices are filed. They are kept in a way that anyone authorized can find them quickly because they are being used frequently. Archiving, on the other hand, is for long-term storage. These are documents that are no longer needed for daily operations, but must be kept for legal, historical, or reference purposes. An example would be a contract from 5 years ago for a client we no longer serve. Archived documents are usually moved to a separate, less accessible location, like a digital archive folder or a physical storage box in a warehouse. The main difference is that filing is for active use, while archiving is for preservation.
Let's talk about crisis management. Imagine a primary piece of office equipment like the main high-capacity copier breaks down. This happens 10 minutes before a critical board meeting where 20 sets of handouts are needed. What is your immediate action plan?
First, I would do a very rapid assessment. Is it a simple paper jam or low ink that I can fix in 60 seconds? If yes, I fix it and move on. If it's a mechanical failure, I immediately notify the IT or maintenance team and give them the specific error code and the urgency of the situation. But I can't just wait for them to arrive because the meeting is in 10 minutes.
Exactly. You can't just wait. What's the alternative?
I would immediately communicate with the meeting organizer. I'd let them know the situation clearly and then offer solutions. I would check if there is another available copier in a different department that I can use. If not, I would see if we can print a smaller number of copies and have people share, or if I can quickly run to a nearby print shop if the office is located in a convenient area. Most importantly, I would suggest sharing digital copies of the documents via email or a shared drive, so the meeting can start on time even if the physical papers are slightly delayed. The goal is to minimize the disruption and ensure the board members have the information they need, even if the delivery method has to change.
That shows a lot of initiative. I want to ask about your organizational skills. Can you describe a specific time when your organizational skills prevented a major operational failure?
In my last role, We had a recurring issue where vendor contracts were expiring without anyone noticing until the service actually cut off. It caused several outages for our software tools. I realized the problem was that the expiration dates were buried in the contracts and not tracked centrally. I took the initiative to create a comprehensive contract master list. I logged every vendor, the contract end date, and the notice period required for renewal. I then set up a system of automated alerts in our calendar 30, 60, and 90 days before a contract expired. This meant we were never surprised by a renewal again. By organizing that data and creating a proactive alert system, I prevented the risk of service interruptions that had previously cost the company hours of downtime.
That's a great example of taking ownership. It's not just about doing the job, but improving the process. Now, let's be honest, administrative work can be repetitive. Data entry, filing, answering the same questions. What are your preferred methods for handling tedious tasks while maintaining a high level of accuracy?
I think the key to accuracy in repetitive work is reducing the reliance on memory and manual effort. I am a big fan of automation. I use templates for recurring documents and macros in Excel for data tasks to reduce the chance of a typo. For tasks that simply cannot be automated, I break them into smaller, manageable chunks and set a specific timer to stay focused. I also use checklists. Even for tasks I've done 100 times, a checklist ensures I don't skip a step when I'm tired or distracted. Finally, I always build in a double-check phase. I'll complete a batch of work and then step away for 5 minutes before reviewing it with a fresh set of eyes. This ensures that quality doesn't drop just because the task is boring.
I like the checklist approach. Now imagine a scenario where the company is growing quickly, but a different department is severely understaffed. Your manager asks you to take on some duties outside your standard front desk operations, like basic bookkeeping or invoicing. How would you approach learning and executing these new tasks without letting your main job slide?
I would view it as an opportunity to grow my skill set. My first step would be to sit down with my supervisor to clarify the expectations. I would want to know the priority level of these new tasks compared to my front desk duties and what the deadlines are. Once I have a clear picture, I would break the bookkeeping tasks into smaller steps. I would identify what resources I need, such as training manuals, software tutorials, or a designated mentor in the finance department who could answer my questions.
How do you balance the new work with the visitors at the door?
I would set aside dedicated blocks of time for the bookkeeping work, perhaps during the slower periods of the day or very early in the morning before the main rush of visitors arrives. This ensures that the front desk remains the priority. I would also keep a running list of questions for my mentor, so that I can get all my answers in one meeting rather than interrupting them every 10 minutes. Regular check-ins with my supervisor would be essential to make sure I'm meeting the new requirements without sacrificing the quality of my core responsibilities.
Last question from me. Imagine it's a Tuesday morning. You have a stack of urgent emails to answer, the phone is ringing off the hook, and 3 different people have just walked through the front door at the same time. How do you prioritize these communication channels simultaneously?
This is where a triage system is essential. I start by quickly scanning my emails for anything that is a true emergency, like a facility failure or a high-level escalation. I flag those, but I don't dive into them yet. My immediate priority is the people in the room. Walk-ins take precedence because they are physically present and cannot be ignored. I would give them a quick, friendly greeting and ask them to wait just a moment, ensuring they feel acknowledged.
And the phone.
While the visitors are settling in, I'll handle the phone calls. If it's a quick inquiry, I'll resolve it. If it's a complex issue, I'll take a message and a callback number. The goal is to clear the immediate air. Once the phone is quiet and the visitors are being assisted, I then move to the flagged emails. I basically categorize by urgency and impact. High impact, immediate need items like the walk-in VIP or a ringing phone come first. Low impact, delayed need items like general emails are scheduled for a specific time later in the hour. I keep a visible queue or a simple notepad to track who I have helped and who I still need to get back to, so nothing falls through the cracks in the chaos.
That's a very professional and structured approach. I appreciate the depth of your answers. It's clear you've thought through the logistics of this role beyond just the surface level. Do you have any questions for me?
I do. I'm curious about the team dynamic here. Since I often act as the first point of contact for the company, how does the communication flow between the front desk and the executive team? Is there a specific feedback loop I should be aware of to ensure I'm representing the leadership's priorities correctly?
That's a great question. We actually hold a brief weekly synchronization meeting where the office manager updates the front desk staff on the upcoming week's VIPs and critical project deadlines. We believe that the front desk should be an extension of our leadership's goals, so we try to keep that communication line very open.
That sounds like exactly the kind of environment I thrive in. Thank you for the insight.
Thank you for your time today. We have a few more candidates to interview, but we will be in touch by the end of the week to let you know the next steps.
I look forward to hearing from you. Have a great afternoon.